Lakes as well, and gentleman over there too. Oh, Kevin, welcome, Kevin. We'll come to you in a moment. And Charlie, yeah, we'll come back to you in a moment. Sorry, Amanda. Okay, so it's nice to be in the heart of the region in sunny central Otago here in Cromwell. So and it's nice for councillors and staff to get out and about and connect throughout our vast region. Apologies, there are no apologies today. Confirmation of the agenda. I just want to note that after item 9, I think it is. Yeah, so I've just got a motion that I'd like to move. It's really just an acknowledgement of staff for this last 12 months. Otherwise, the agenda is as circulated. I beg your pardon? Oh, with regard to, it's just if there's a, okay, confirmation of that additional item. Yeah, I will move that the additional thanks of staff or acknowledgement of staff will be dealt with after item 9. I move seconded. Hillary. Can you do it before item 9? Beg your pardon? Can you do it as 8.4? Otherwise 9 and we're in non-public. Before item 9. Yes, please. Yeah. Oh, I thought you said after. Sorry. For item 9. Oh, no, sorry. Currently, we've got item 9 as the recommendations to be adopted at the committee meetings, minutes to be adopted, and I was just going to move it after that item. Is that all good? I'll put the motion. All those in favour, please say aye. Aye. Against? Carried. Thank you. Item 3, conflict of interest. That's just the general reminder that we need to be aware if there is a conflict in any way, shape or form with us as elected members of any private or other external interest that might arise. Moving on to the public forum, where we've got Kevin Allen and Charlie Hall here from the Maniatota Pest Management, and they've indicated that they can speak to council. And if you'd like to head down the other end of the table, Kevin and Charlie, just grab another seat if you please. Yeah. Thank you. Welcome, Kevin. Charlie, you're wearing a slightly different hat these days, Kevin, but that's great to have you here. And a special welcome to Charlie as well. So, Maniatota Pest Company or Pest Management, talking about wallabies.
Yes, a lot of people here will know me and have probably heard me talking about wallabies before. Obviously, you know, the incursion is of a huge concern to everyone in this room, and also particularly the stakeholders out in the countryside there. With Maniatota being on perhaps one of the main front lines there, it's something that we're working pretty hard to assist council with. So I really appreciate the opportunity to come in here and discuss it with you guys today. And on behalf of Maniatota Pest Management, we really want to commend ORC for its response to the wallaby incursion, because up to date it's been, it's been very, very successful, and there's been a number of wallaby kills as a result. So that's just fantastic, and the eradication status for Bennett's wallaby under the pest management plan is excellent. And it's the only option that we've got to prevent, a pretty big disaster. So the fact that that's come into the regional pest management plan is great. Additional funding assistance for wallaby control through central government is a real breakthrough, and ORC has certainly played an important role in raising that issue and has allowed the bid to be successful. So input from the government is going to make a huge difference throughout the country with this issue. MPM would like to take this opportunity today, though, to raise a couple of points for consideration. And they may be points that are already under consideration through our council. But because there's such a small opportunity here, it's going to be a good thing to raise. It's not working. We understand that the current Wallaby Steering Group's made up of representatives from throughout the country, and it's been working really hard to provide planning for dealing with wallabies in both the North and South Island. And that's really, really challenging given that dealing with different species around New Zealand, dealing with different densities and locations throughout the country. So it's quite challenging to come up with a plan that's going to fit the whole country. The wallaby incursion into Otago is incredibly unique compared to dealing with wallaby anywhere else. Wallaby numbers being so low and covering such a large area of remote backcountry, this may be the only opportunity to halt the establishment and prevent the wallabies from getting a proper foothold. And I know you people in the room are aware that if they do get that proper foothold, they'll be one of the worst animal pests that Otago's ever seen. Technological breakthroughs, they're out there and being developed, such as thermal imaging, aerial stuff and that. But up till now, they're not really available. So that they can't really be relied on at this stage. So traditional methods are going to be the best tool currently available at this point. So what we'd like to consider is that a best practice system for dealing with wallaby in Otago in such a unique situation should be developed. For example, other methods employed in other areas may not suit Otago. So some areas they use dogs to flush wallabies out and things like that, and that can be an effective tool in some places, but here that may not be the best option, just as an example. Yeah, so one option we really want Council to consider and may already be under consideration is to form a regional control group that's made up of local stakeholders, similar to the wild and conifer control groups. And the wild and conifer control groups have been formed to deal with the different situation in different areas. So you've got your Central Otago, Wakatip, Southland, that type of group, all working on those specific areas with their different challenges. We think something like that for working out how to work with wallabies in this unique location would be beneficial. And likely candidates for this option, maybe the likes of local conservation staff, federated farmers, pest control contractors, district council staff, that is just a few. Manitoto Pest Management would certainly support such a group. You've got a lot of expertise there that should be tapped into. And by developing an overall plan that suits the unique environments, I think is crucial. Working with ORC staff, a group like this, developing best practice could give Otago the edge that it needs to deal with wallabies in the most specific and effective way. That's really one of the main points I wanted to make here. And I appreciate you guys having us in here to be able to say it. And we all look forward to working with you guys. And if anyone wants to come and talk to us, we're available at any time. And we certainly want to assist ORC anywhere we can with this wallaby problem.
Thanks very much, Kevin. Charlie, was there anything you wanted to add?
No, I think Kevin's pretty much touched on it.
Cool. You're pretty clear in what you've suggested. Have you had the opportunity to pass on what you've passed on to us today to staff directly?
I've had some discussions, but I think it's early days yet with the funding coming in, and I think that plans are still coming in around how it's going to work, and that's why we think it's an opportune time right now to bring this up. But we were certainly happy to discuss it with staff or anyone else. So.
Yeah, and I just had one other question in terms of are we holding our ground? Are we winning the battle right at the moment? What's your view in the current situation?
Well, having been involved since the first reported incidents, what's been happening has been working. So when wallabies have been located, they've been generally dealt with. If they've been able to be found, it's very, very difficult. And I know that for you guys looking at it, it would look like it's a huge amount of money going to such a small result. But it's clear to me, having lived in that country for so long, dealing with this sort of thing, is that those gains made there are huge. You know, the operations that have killed 1 or 2 wallabies, that's a huge result, and that's why you know, we're pretty happy to commend what's been going on, because it will work. But it's expensive, it's time consuming, and very difficult. There's no easy answer. But now's the easiest opportunity and the easiest time you'll ever have for removing these animals.
Yeah, you obviously want to take it to another level and have a good plan for our sort of unique situation in this region. Sure.
Yeah, I think if you go and if these animals are approached the wrong way, then they will learn and they will adapt, and they'll become harder to deal with. I think when you've got such a good opportunity now to deal with them quickly and swiftly, and in a way that's structured so that you've got the most chance of educating these animals.
Thank you. Michael, Laws, then Hilary, then Carmen. Michael.
As you say, there's sort of a space that's developing still, but I'm taking that you would see us building that strategy into our long-term plan.
Absolutely. I think if a group can be formed with many stakeholders and a large resource of expertise, then something could be developed that could go into a long-term plan and be resilient for a long time to come.
And on the second part, one of our predecessors, Brad Bell, I think had quite a bit to do with you guys, and would always stress to us that the other side of the Waitaki was the problem. Have we made any progress with the other side of the Waitaki in the past 12 months?
Oh, absolutely. I mean, you know, Environment Canterbury have been fully involved with the wallaby situation, as ORC has, and its resources have increased from what I understand, and so therefore the work's increased and the focus on the issues increased. So the current Wallaby Steering Group is focusing on the whole issue, and so every part and every affected area is developing plans as we speak. So there's huge advancements have happened there. Yeah, there's a lot of good work happening.
Thank you. I should have reminded everybody to use their microphones because we have some people on Zoom, I believe. So just make sure you take advantage of the microphone so everyone hears you. Thank you. Hilary.
2 questions. The first being, can you form such a group? I mean, you're asking for such a group. I'm not sure whether funding and things is happening or how that's working, but is there a barrier to such a group being formed, regardless of whether we form it, and that we could be part of it? You could be forming it, doing things and saying, could you funnel money through us, or could you, once it's there, is that possible? And the second question is it feasible for such a group to be a pest group rather than just a wallaby group? Because of course we've got other little bouncy things around the place that we're concerned about, particularly in the Manitoba.
Sorry, Hilary, I'm not 100% sure whether your microphone's actually working. I don't know whether you've got to activate.
Is that working?
Yeah.
Okay.
Thank you. Sorry.
2 questions. I don't know whether you heard.
Yeah, no, absolutely. I think with the first one, it depends on the mechanism of funding and how that's going to be distributed into the field. You certainly could have, I mean, you've got the Walding Conifer group that's already in place and all that structure around that. So I guess any type of government funding coming in could be structured in that same way. But there's other ways of doing it too. So you could have it internally or you could have it externally. It depends on that structure. And I'm not familiar with how MPI is working or how that funding's coming in. But the Walding conifer groups or control groups seem to be successful. It seems to be working. So I think it's a pretty good model that's worth looking at.
They were there before this funding.
Yeah.
Was some, so, you know, this current government funding was available.
Yep, there were.
I mean, I'm just saying.
There were some groups.
Can you form a group before you figure out the other things? You can see who it's likely to be. The government would engage with it or something. I mean, you'd obviously want some idea around that.
Yeah, I think with the wallaby issue in particular, it's probably quite important to keep it all together. So if the council's already doing work, then that group certainly needs to be connected to the council. It's just, yeah, I'm not aware of how all that stuff's going to work. But there's certainly lots of options. I mean, in terms of other pests, the second part of your question, like Manitoto Pest Management is basically a community group, if you like. It's a stakeholder-owned company, and it does manage all pests within its system. And so it pays for itself and operates itself. So that's one form of dealing with pests too. So there's a lot of options there. I don't know if that answers what you really were after, but
You're on to it. That's the answer. Yeah.
Carmen.
Thank you. It's really great to see how well you are doing. I remember meeting you 3-4 years ago in my first term. We came to the pub at Renfrewley. I think Councillor Noon was there. And, you know, you took us right through what the problems are, how they're little buggers and they can jump and they can move and you can be sitting there, and how good the infrared cameras are. Now, you talked about that. Is that still a bit of a problem, that we've got something developed but we're not using it? I was trying to pick up on what you were saying. There's obviously a concern there. That's my first question, please.
yes, no, there's huge advancements in that technology, and it's in development, but not currently available as a useful tool. Well, it is a useful tool in some ways, but what I mean is it's not fully developed as a useful control tool yet, but it's very, very close. So the artificial intelligence side of infrared thermal technology is developing pretty quickly.
Yes.
And I know that ORC staff have been involved in some advancements there. And the aerial technology is quite close to being developed, but there are a lot of issues. It's such a new, and you know, dealing with this situation is so unique, and it's something that's never really been needed before. And so these tools are now needed, and so the tools might already be available, but they've got to be specific and functioning for the specific purpose. And so there's still a lot of work to do in that development there.
Okay, thank you. I've got three questions. Second question is: are they TB carriers? Wallabies?
Any animal that moves is capable of carrying TB.
Yes.
But they're not known as a main vector of TB.
Yes.
So they can pick it up just
Yes.
like any other animal.
Yeah.
But if they are infected with bovine TB, they're not as likely to leak it out and spread the disease as prolifically as some other vectors.
Thank you. And the third thing is we hear that when there is an incident, or we see a wallaby, or we've had a wallaby shot, for you as the pest company and for us and for the Greater Otago, how do you see our comms plan working? Are we doing pretty good? Because there's always something saying, you know, if you see a wallaby, or do we need to emphasise that message more, or what could you see that we could help you further? Yeah,
I think, you know, and that's part of what I've been talking about today, is that the response needs to be concise, and it needs to be more set to a best practice.
Yes.
I guess you've had qualified staff involved, you've had skilled people, and they've been able to deal with these issues as they've come up. The risk is that you have a turnover of staff, or you get a certain personality who thinks they want to do something a certain way, and then things get changed, and then the response changes. Whereas if you had a best practice system in place that's quite firm and has had enough expertise looking at it from all angles, then it's going to be far more effective no matter who's implementing it. So I think up to date, it's been very good, but there's room for improvement to ensure that it stays.
Thank you, appreciate it.
Kevin, then Gary.
You'd probably just firstly reflecting on the magnitude of the problem. So north of the river, so for instance, up the Hacker Valley, there was a poison program 3 years ago done on 2 farms, and they netted up one gully 1,500 wallabies. So, which just to give you sort of a wee bit of a, and that's only on 2 properties that got together. So, Kevin, you're aware of the new monitoring cameras that are actually going on the dams?
Yeah, I've got I've been talking to staff that have been involved, and so I've got some idea. From what I can understand, it's a huge development.
Yeah.
And the technology that's going into it is definitely going to be an asset for developing further as we go.
Right. And have you been managed to track down your main points of incursion into the Maniapoto, or have we found the track yet that we can block?
Yeah, that's a difficult one, because the problem is overall now. You know, you can put it in quite simple terms. Wallabies were contained in a containment area, and now they're not. They've breached that containment, and so the whole Wallaby project now, and the Wallaby steering group that's in place now, has certainly recognised that. It's been well recognised, and there's a lot of work going into trying to pull all that back in.
Yep.
But once they're out, and it's going to be difficult.
Thank you.
Gary, and then we'll wrap it up. Okay, thank you.
Okay, cool. Thanks, guys. Just like to explore a wee bit further with you. You've suggested a regional control group. So then, are you here saying you would like ORC to establish that? Or are you saying that there's a will amongst, say, the community where you sit at the moment, that you want to lead that? Who do you see leading the group and actually the drive towards forming it? And then also the second question would just be around the areas that you would look for landowner involvement from, because I assume you would be including, say, the Upper Clutha and then maybe around into North Otago to try and encompass a circle around the main areas. So where do we sit with the request?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I think that obviously the regional council's at the forefront, because it's dealing with the potential funding through central government. So that's a big part. That's one of the main parts. In terms of a regional control group, it certainly doesn't need to be necessarily connected to the council. It can be reasonably independent, but it's certainly going to have to work alongside. And a group like that would be very difficult to form without ORC assistance, obviously. And I think just, something that works together, involving the community, stakeholders and council, some sort of combined situation, I think would be ideal.
So you'd be hoping that it'll be a landowner-led group that and you've brought along the chair with you, or are you hoping that the council will be the drive first and then look to?
Yeah, I think it needs to be a probably not a landowner-led, more of a stakeholder, and because it's not limited to just the Maniapoto, you've got your entire northern regional boundary affected here. So whether it's multiple groups or a group in each area similar to the Wilding Conifer, the way it operates, it's yeah, it's something that is going to require a bit more consideration for sure. In the Maniototo, because we are an affected stakeholder and we're extremely concerned about what's going to happen there if these wallabies get away, you know, we're very supportive and we would do anything pretty much that we can to assist. But I don't know if that's a widespread feeling amongst community stakeholders. And so that's something that would have to be investigated a bit before you branch out into those other areas. But there's a lot of expertise out there that are sitting there and working in other areas that would be most valuable to pull together into one place and utilise in this situation, I think.
Great, thank you.
Excellent, thank you very much. And just for the record, Charlie, you are the chair of the Maniototo Pest Company, Pest Management Company here. Excellent. Hey, well, look, thank you very much, both of you, for being here today. Really helpful for us to understand from your perspective what's going on, and we note your request as well. So thank you.
Thank you very
Cheers.
much.
Okay, moving on to item 5. It's the confirmation of the minutes from the council meeting on the 25th of November. Would someone like to move? Move Carmen, seconded Gretchen. Any discussion? If not, I'll put the motion. All those in favour, please say aye.
Aye.
Against, carried. Moving on to actions. Anything to note there? Everyone comfortable? Okay.
Sorry, was that minutes?
So no, we've just moved on to actions. But we've just moved the minutes.
Can I just ask a question of information about minutes? You know, when you had people present and absent, and we were...
I'll just get you to grab the microphone. Sorry, Marion.
Michael and I were absent last time because we were doing council business. Do we ever distinguish in recording the minutes why people are absent? No. Okay. Oh, sorry.
It's perhaps something we can chat about it when we get together next time for an informal chat. Thanks, Marion. Okay, moving on to item 7, matters for council consideration. So the first item is item 8.1, and we'll just work through these and take all these papers as read. So this is the ORC involvement in the Queenstown Lakes District Council spatial planning. And welcome to Kyle, and also special welcome to Caroline from Queenstown Lakes District Council. Nice to have you both here. So this paper presents a request from Queenstown Lakes District Council to contribute to funding part of a housing capacity assessment for the Queenstown Lakes area. The NPS, National Policy Statement, Urban Development, requires Queenstown Lakes and ORC to jointly prepare a future development strategy by 2024, helping to inform both councils' next LTP due in 2024. And essentially the first step as part of this is the request that we've got in front of us today for the ORC to fund 50% of the costs for a housing capacity assessment, which is step 1 for the Queenstown urban area. And this is to be completed by 31st of July 2021, not far away. So welcome both. Lead us through if you've got any comment. We're taking the report as read.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. There's 2 things that I wanted to highlight, and you ran through most of them. The other thing I wanted to highlight is that we have similar responsibilities to develop partnerships with DCC. And so just keep in mind that the agreements that we reach today will set the envelope for those sorts of discussions as well. And we do have similar but lesser responsibilities to the other 3 TAs in our region as well. Obviously there will be some proposals put forward in the LTP, which I understand you've been discussing as well. The other thing that I want to highlight as well is that QDC is currently undertaking the Waiora spatial plan. That is occurring in parallel and will be completed public consultation relatively early next year. And the communication between yourselves and QDC have been about our more formal involvement in the 2024 process. So this is the first step of kicking off that more technical process under the MPSUD, QLDC is in the final stages of finalising their version 1 essentially spatial plan. So happy to take any questions, and as Chair Noon, we have our manager spatial plan for QLDC here, Carolyn Dumas, to answer any specific questions you may have as well.
Excellent. And I should have just noted the attachments there as the correspondence between Mayor Bolt and myself with regards to governance membership of the governance group, which is Alexa and myself. Questions, Marion, and then Michael.
So the first question is to do with the spatial plan. So this is a housing spatial plan, isn't it? It's a subset of it, correct? So when you talk about we pay 50% towards it, I presume with the two of you sitting at the table like that, it's going to be 50% staffing and working together and governance?
Yes, so the how it's worked so far, we've had great involvement from Carl in terms of his expertise and capacity. So he's been across the detail throughout this spatial plan. In terms of next steps, the 2024 joint work programme hasn't been discussed in detail. This is really the first step.
Okay.
So we're looking forward to bringing ORC into the conversation early next year about setting up that programme for 2024.
Okay, so then I think this leads to my next concern, which I think I've raised in here before, which is to do with spatial plans in Queenstown, including the airport or not including the airport, and also given and with the housing that space that may or may not be released as a result of that, and also when that goes into where does tourism go and housing. I mean, they're two huge questions for Queenstown at the moment.
They are, and in terms of this spatial plan, we have made several assumptions regarding the airport, and they are reflecting the information in Queenstown Airport's statement of intent, which is that Queenstown Airport will remain in its current location for the duration of the SOI, as will Wanaka.
Right.
We have also made reference to the Christchurch International Airport's purchase of Terrace, and really made an assumption that if that does proceed, that will change things going forward, but not for this current 2021 spatial plan.
Okay.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Michael D.
Yeah, Mr. Chairman, the 50,000 which we're being asked to approve today, in whose budget does that sit?
I don't believe, I think it's an over expenditure.
0.4 unbudgeted.
It's Otago Regional Council's potential over expenditure if we approve it today. That's my understanding.
The reason that the paper has come forward is that there is no budget for this particular expenditure, so we're seeking some ahead of the LTP to kick the work off.
Which is why I asked the question, really. It's got to come from somewhere. It's not a small amount of money. It hasn't been budgeted, so who's paying?
Fair question.
Reserves. We would draw down from reserves if we needed to. There's always the potential that we can manage inside of budget, and we might not need to do that, but this just gives us the opportunity to do that if it was necessary through your approval.
Okay, moving on, Michael Laws, then Gary, then Kevin.
I'm sure this is answered somewhere, but is this unique to Queenstown? Or are we going to be approached by TAs throughout the region?
It's only high growth. Dunedin.
Hang on, I'll just ask Sarah or Kyle to respond. Thank you.
Thank you. The answer is that we have similar obligations towards DCC, who are another Tier 2 authority, so we will need to jointly develop the housing and business assessments and the future development strategy with them. The arrangement that we reach with them is yet to be discussed and may be different, but as I said up front, the offer that we put forward will frame those discussions going forward. We have similar but lesser obligations to Central Otago, and Waitaki District Council, who are tier 3. And they, Waitaki in particular, have already undertaken a lot of the housing and business assessment light approach to inform their district planning review that's underway at the moment. CODC are in a little bit of a different position. They are undertaking spatial planning to inform a future district plan change, and Clutha is not captured by the NPSUD, but I think it makes sense if we've got 4 out of 5, we may as well do the whole lot. So the short answer is that yes, it will set some expectations around how we engage with DCC going forward, but the arrangements will, in terms of governance and our involvement with that, yet to be determined.
And the partnership that we've got with Queenstown, for example, the invitation.
Michael, could you grab your microphone, please?
Sorry, the
Thank you.
partnership that is proposed, is it Fiora, with Andrew and
Alexa.
Alexa, is that a 50-50 partnership? Given the funding's 50-50?
It's also with Kaitahu, and we have yet to discuss funding with them.
Are you looking to them for a contribution?
I'm not sure at this stage. I would say that's unlikely. Most, in terms of the other spatial plans around the country, they've mostly been 50, local government, central government funded. So that's probably the approach we will end up taking.
Yeah. In a previous paper in September, I think I highlighted that the spatial planning processes were costing around $1 to $2 million for the TAs. It's tracking along that sort of budget for QLDC at the moment, so our contribution is not 50-50 towards the overall cost.
There's some big appeals going on right now in the fund.
And the arrangement that QLDC have is currently with central government, Kaitahu and QLDC at the moment. The opportunity is for ORC to join that partnership, so it will be 1 of 4 as well.
What are the advantages of us joining the partnership? For example, we in the past, when we have had flagged issues, particularly around environment and flood management, and being ignored at a TA level, despite, will we have a greater degree of influence or a lesser degree of influence by being part of this?
I think the intention is if we're in the tent, then we're able to influence it.
I would also add to that, it's a greater chance for collaboration on these wide-ranging issues that we can actually take advantage of.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, I had the order slightly wrong before. Alexa, then Gary, then Kevin, then Kate, then Gretchen.
Okay, thanks. Hi, thank you for this. I'm just looking at the strategic vision for accommodating urban growth, at least every 6 years. That's what it's there to do. And I've just had a look at the MFE guidance on this, and I'm wondering if there's some things that I think it doesn't quite meet for us. So I guess we'll scope it out. But would it look at the relationship, for example, between climate change and housing? Would it look at how to consider how to urbanise and prevent further spill into rural areas? Would it look at those sorts of things that can be presumably accommodated in other plans?
Yes, the short answer is absolutely. And when you get a copy of our current draft, you will see that climate change and that adaptation too has been taken into consideration, and also highlights the potential benefits of actually increasing urban density with reduced emissions, your environmental footprint, and more detail on that. Yeah.
Just to clarify though, that the housing and business assessment is really about understanding demand and how it might be met. So that's the technical work that will be funding, but the plan that work will inform takes a broader consideration of how that demand might be met in consideration of those issues. So concerns around constraints to urban development really drove the spatial planning process to date, and I think you'll see that early next year.
Thank you.
Gary.
Thanks. The 50% contribution and then the funding associated with it, is that capped at exactly this process, or do other steps that will follow from this also have the same obligation for us to meet half of the contribution?
This particular one is laid out to us in the National Policy Statement of Urban Development, so we don't really have any wiggle room in terms of the joint responsibility around our jurisdiction of Queenstown as an urban area. In terms of the rest of it, that has yet to be worked through in terms of the 2024 joint work programme. So I can't give you the answer, but it hasn't been worked through yet.
Yeah. To add to that, by being involved at the governance level, at the steering group level and at a working group level, those things are able to be influenced from inside the tent going forwards. At this stage, we are, we obviously is essentially trying to finalise the current process before kicking off the next one, which we will be more involved in. So there will be more funding and there will be more contributions in kind going forwards.
Okay, so that's what I needed to know. It's just a start,
Just
and we do need to be thinking we'll be there for 50% potentially in later steps.
Potentially.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Kevin.
Yeah, and probably going back to Councillor Beaker's original comment that somewhere has to pay for it. So what directorship will this fall under? And is the next stage Grow Well Hora, is that incorporated already in our long-term plan as a proposed budget?
Do you want me, Kyle? So Gwyneth speaking here.
Gwyneth.
Yes, Kyle sits in my directorate and therefore it impacts Kyle's budget. And as Sarah said, there's no allocated funding in Kyle's specific budget. And this paper will give us the opportunity, if we as an organisation go over budget this year, to draw down on reserves. But in terms of responsibility, it sits in Kyle's budget, which is within my directorate. The short answer in terms of LTP is yes. Kyle has made provisions in the LTP in accordance with your resolution at the 9 September committee meeting, where he went over, proposed a number of options for the urban development work programme. And Kyle, you're welcome to expand on that, but if you wish.
That answers what, yep, I'm heavy. And then
Kate.
Thank you. Is that working?
Yes.
Yeah. Just if you don't agree as partners to what is the capacity is sorry, going back. When you develop one of these, is it pretty scientific and black and white about the capacity or not? Because when it comes to taking it to the next steps, if you don't agree, then the potential for conflicts of coming to a plan change and everything else will arise. And I just want to understand how that process works itself out.
The housing, I mean, Carl, you can probably answer this better than me, but the actual capacity work is scientific, accurate and correct. And part of the partnership work will be agreeing and disagreeing and then agreeing on the outputs.
Okay.
Yeah, it's technical.
Yeah, okay. Now, Dunedin's, I think, quite a long way through doing a capacity study after the 2GP because all this happened afterwards. Have you been involved, Carl, with that?
Yes, I have. So Nathan, who used to work here, is the technical expert within DCC working on that. And to add to Carolyn's response, the housing and business assessment around what demand is and where it might fit in the current planning system is supposed to be independent and technical. Like most science, there is a little bit of an art to it as well. And DCC's position is that they are currently working through finalising their appeals on this 2GP and variation 2 is consuming most of their time at this stage. So my discussions with DCC, they have yet to move towards how we're going to meet these requirements. Okay. So it may be that they undertake that independently and they seek some other agreement with us. What joint looks like with each of our TA partners might be different depending on the individual circumstances.
Okay. Just one last question. It's interesting that you're separating out the housing and the business capacity because, and I understand why. There's, you have to do it. But given
there is also a substantial change in the business opportunities, potentially even with TY, for example. Can I just understand, waiting to 2024 for the business capacity, next business capacity, is it? Financially, I can understand it, but is it?
I think if you think about to inform a 2024 LTP, you've got to do that work at least 18 months prior.
Yeah.
So the business work will happen, way before, probably start planning it next year.
And would that be something you see as being combined? Again, so it'd be another tranche of money out of that other pot that we've talked about in the long-term plan.
Yeah, so there's two requirements under the NPSUD. Tier 2 local authorities have to undertake a housing component of a housing and business assessment by July next year. So that will provide a baseline for that housing discussion going forwards. And then a fuller assessment has to be done to inform the second stage. So the idea with this first one is to essentially set up a process and a template that is easily updatable when new information comes to hand. So it's essentially creating, a model or a process to feed new information into that the business interactions, how those two uses compete for space or don't, can also be considered going forward as well.
I got the process out of the report. What I didn't get is, if you're just going to concentrate on housing in the first bit, how do you know you're not taking over what could be really good building or business, land in that process and balancing them both together if they're done separately? Anyway, yeah.
Well, when you do the business, you'll have to join the two together anyway to actually look at the benefits of both for that very reason.
Gretchen. Sorry.
Question that was raised in feedback on the NPSUD as well.
Gretchen.
My question's been answered, so I'd be happy to move.
And second.
Excellent. So that's the 5 recommendations set out on page 12.
Yeah, and I just think that this is a really great opportunity for the Regional Council to work in partnership with QLDC. It's long overdue, I guess, especially in urban development. It's a really crucial area for our attention. Came out of the RPS and now coming out of further regulatory requirements. But beyond the requirements, it makes a heap of sense as well. So I really support this. And yeah, it's a step in the journey towards that 2024 future development strategy. It's a really sensible step, and we just need to get onto it because by the 31st of July, we need to have that housing only assessment. So really happy to make those recommendations. Yeah.
Thank you, Gretchen. So moved Gretchen, seconded Kate. Kate, did you want to speak to it? You're all good. Okay, any further discussion, debate? If not, I'll put those 5 recommendations on page 12. All those in favour, please say aye.
Aye.
Against? Carried. Thanks very much, Caroline and Cole. Much appreciated.
Thank you very much.
Moving on to 7.2, which is the Regional Public Transport Plan scope. Welcome to Gary and Gavin. This is the paper that seeks Council's endorsement of the proposed approach to reviewing the Regional Public Transport Plan, including timelines and engagement. A key part of this review will be to describe how Council intends to deliver a successful public transport network across the region, including principles, objectives and policies to achieve that. There's also the timetable targets in the paper as well, just noting that the 23rd of June is the date the Council plans to adopt, or the target date for the Council to adopt the reviewed PTP, and also just noting the attachments, the annual plan submission, community feedback and engagement with TAs. Take the report as read. Gary, Gavin, anything you want to say? Just happy to take questions. Councillors, questions, queries? Marion.
Yeah, it's to do with, thank you very much, the report under the executive summary. On paragraph 5, you go for the key part of the review will be to describe how Council intends to deliver. You've got nothing in there that I can see about attracting passengers. You've got service quality and performance and fares and ticketing. is it kind of understood that you're attracting passengers?
It's a question for Gary.
Mr. Chairman, I think that comes back to the objectives that you see in this document. And so, for example, when you get to that policy stuff, you'll see there's things here around information timetables and journey planning. That pick up on means that we look to grow the patronage of the service. I think when it talks about delivering a successful network, looking forward, we've got a lot of work going on at the moment. You've got the Queenstown Transport Space that will pick up. You've got the master planning stuff that will pick up. Central Otago is starting some master planning stuff. That hopefully we can put into the air.
In South Otago.
You've got Shape Future Me, and we start a conversation
with Balclise and Milton. Okay, that's because, sorry, just to make it very clear, for me, growing this is about decarbonisation. It's not just about going to electrical or hydrogen buses. It's about getting fewer cars on the road.
Thank you. Any?
No, I just changed that.
You're all covered off. You're covered off, Marion.
Is that?
Hilary.
Following on from Councillor Hollis' comment, I'm wondering whether anything needs to be added to this, because we're being asked to sort of endorse the proposed scope. And there's not only what Councillor Hollis has raised, namely how do we try and grow the number of people on buses, but also the improving people's experience as they're telling us about it. I mean, none of these things here seem to be, it says identify the services and whatever, but none of it says, for example, if what was very dear to our users' minds was getting real-time information on bus stops, which I believe it to be. Would that be in here anywhere? So that and the increase in usage and things are two different parts of the same thing. What are we actually, that scope sort of doesn't involve more people using buses or more people getting what they want from the service we're providing. I can't see any. So do we want to add that into the scope at all?
Do you want to cover off, Gary, some of the suite of improvements that are planned to be implemented over a period of time for PT that you've currently? I know it's an incoming paper, but it's a question that I think where Hilary's going is that does this process pick all that up in its current form and potentially add to it or subtract to it? But currently in the plan going forward, you've got a number of enhancements to achieve the things that Hilary's talking about.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. You're right, the plan going forward will pick up on what's coming through that business case work. And I think I put in here is the plans are a moment in time. And so as the environment changes, maybe that it's not 3 years that we'll be on next time, maybe sooner, or as you've seen in this last we will make some changes for discount periods, those kinds of things coming out. In terms of the real time, that should be picked up in the journey plan of the document. We've also indicated that it's a good first go at the scope, but we still have more conversations with the FDA. So a change that can be an opportunity to certainly pick up the feedback that we're getting today.
Can we then add to the scope something that says increased usages of buses and increased services as will be
patronage and routes?
No, patronage and services that we have been receiving feedback about.
We've got service and performance in there. The
5, which so this is about reviewing the policies and policies.
No, I'm talking about scope.
I wonder, Hilary and sorry.
So we can't amend the paper. You'd have to do that through a motion.
Yes, and I was suggesting that when it says endorses the scope, we endorse the scope with the addition of.
Yep, cool. I wonder between you and Kate, are you able to just come up with a couple of words to slot into that third recommendation?
I realise it's a sort of a living document, but those two, without knowing exactly what services and things.
Chair, I think the Councillor Hobbs one is promoting mode shift. I think it's the essence of it, so we could add that into the scope.
Okay. Thank you.
Thank you.
Who?
Making some words, Kate. Cool.
There was someone over here, and I can't remember who it was. Kate, sorry. And then Alexa.
Kia ora. I've got a number of questions as I go through here. I'm intrigued that COVID hasn't been mentioned much in here, because COVID has had a substantial change in commercial bus routes that have linked the regions before. Intercities have a lot of their routes, I understand, or the frequencies, should I say. Have you had a lens on, and so what I don't get from this is what would trigger the need for a public transport service should Intercity pull out completely, or if the prices got so high for their service that there really wasn't a regional connection from Dunedin to Queenstown, for example.
Through you, Mr. Chairman, I think there's two things. There's community request or stakeholder request, and then one thing that's probably missing from the current plan that we need to think about with respect going forward is how we monitor the environment and put some triggers in there around need for extra interventions.
Well, it's interesting. We had a request for a ferry to stop it from falling over to assist them. Equally, it'd be much better to keep an existing service as long as it's doing the job and providing a service. But would that be one that you'd see would be something we should be adding potentially to the scope to monitor and potentially be there to ensure services remain? I know it's getting into a really tricky commercial space.
Kevin?
Mr. Chairman, we're just seeking approval today for the scope of an activity, not signing off the plan today,
No, I appreciate
getting
that.
into the detail of delivering
Okay.
it. So as long as we're clear that those sorts of issues are embraced by the scope, we're asking you to sign off today, and then we'll bring it back to you for the strategic sign off. I think there's further opportunity to address those issues in detail.
Excellent. Thank you.
We do an Otago Southland-wide regional land transport plan. It talks about public transport. I'm just wondering, would it make some sense, considering the regions are so connected, whether we should be considering an Otago Southland-wide regional passenger transport plan as opposed to just Otago? I appreciate it would make the process more difficult.
I guess there is an opportunity to do that, but I'm not sure that what the connection points across the regions are that would justify that. I mean, we heard that in Dalpluga, for example, around Dalpluga down to Four and Harbour Hospital. It's probably maybe the only touch point.
I would have thought there was a lot of transport between Queenstown and Invercargill for supplies. I'm sorry, I don't go on that road as often as others do. Yeah, you don't see that yeah. In the past, it's been a good tourism route.
I think the challenge is probably that we have different funding models.
Yeah.
And I know the conversations with my colleagues in myself in terms of some challenges they've got there at the moment. Just not sure how it can be explored.
Yep. I suppose the key thing is that potentially those discussions could well fall out of that process further down the track. But it may be also something that the Regional Land Transport Committee is
and
could be discussed.
Great. And the last one was, I've got several, but I'll just limit myself to three. The contractual requirements, I'm surprised that is seen out of scope, and I appreciate that you've got ongoing contracts at the moment, but when we talk about decarbonisation and you talk about it in here for the buses, potentially why you would take the contracts out off the table here, because that would involve a contractual matter.
You're out because that's the implementation of the policy that you adopt in this document. So if you decide you want a certain approach to decarbonise the PT fleet, that will then flow into contract terms.
So in order to do that, you've suggested earlier on, we need to specifically say it, that the contractual terms are up for.
I'm saying it'd be out of scope.
Okay, Alexa.
Actually, I've had my questions answered in that lot, thank you.
Okay, Brian.
The next 12 months are a busy time. We're reviewing the expenditure LTP. What are the implications of this delayed 12 months?
I'll comment first. Look, this is a window of opportunity right now to do it. It's got to be done at some point in time, and if we slide it to the future, it's just going to slide on top of other work. The second thing is we raised the expectation of stakeholders that we will do it now, and they will have geared up to participate in it now, and not necessarily in the future for the same reason.
Do we have the cost of the process?
Sorry, no opinion.
It's in the current 2021 financial forecast. Okay. Any further question, Alexa?
I'd just like to explore a little bit further this idea of Kate's, and really it's the approach of the regional land transporters to try and do things a bit more together. And we have in here that we're talking to, so we're not, these features are out of scope, and I just kind of wonder why. The connecting the medium, what the way to go, full network review. Is there a good reason for them being out of scope?
I think
it's paragraph 24.
The way to go stuff, the shape and feature need stuff will be an input to the plan, but we're not revisiting, we're not trying to change it through preparation of the plan.
I see.
Yeah. Okay. So we're definitely incorporating, it's the other way around, we're making sure the information from those initiatives is flowing in, but we're not sort of going back and re-engineering those programs with those partners.
Thanks.
Kate.
I appreciate the reason why we need to do this review, and I've been keenly awaiting it. I am, however, now slightly concerned about the timeframes in order to get the best input we can get from all of the stakeholders and others like the Ministry of Education and a few other departments that I'd probably want to include it. And I mean, students, for example, are barely going to be able to be consulted in this timeframe because they really won't be up and running, as an example. Is there, and because we're consulting on so much other stuff is actually the biggest reason, I'm just wondering, is there any reason this couldn't be put off for 6 months to a year in order to make sure that that consultation in the background of the review is as best as it could be? Because I think this is an opportunity we can do once really well for probably 6 to 8 years. And I appreciate the amount of work you've been under. It's not a criticism. It's just wondering whether we're putting you under too tight a time frame.
It is an ambitious program. If you put off reviewing it, I guess one of the downsides is if you simplify the plan, actually what it needs to do. It really is around saying what are the services that are integral to our network. It does other stuff, but it's really about what it is, so that if you want a contract or subsidised services that are in there. It's not a once, do it once and you miss out and got it in there, but it does perhaps delay some stuff.
And I'm just, sorry, we'll go to Michael and then I was going to go back to Hillary with regards to any wording and then I'll go back to Kate.
I'm just,
okay.
I'm finding it hard to ask questions and doing.
No, good go. Michael.
Yeah, I don't know whether it was Gavin or Gary made the observation, but I want to agree with it warmly that there is a high level of anticipation of this review, because it has been waiting in the wings for quite a long time. And so have a lot of people who want to make submissions for improved services and different approaches to providing PT. I'm speaking about Dunedin there. I'm not sure about Queenstown. It could well apply to Queenstown as well. Yeah. And the thought occurs to me that to undertake the review of the RPTP, in my opinion, should not be delayed, but that doesn't necessarily mean that we're going to implement it as quickly as we might if money was not a problem. I think we should get on with the process of doing the significant community consultation. And I'm sure it will be significant this time round. And that'll give us time to work out how we're going to, in an affordable way, make it all happen, including real-time information, which is certainly a mechanism whose time has come well and truly for Dunedin. So I would support the motion as it's worded here. Let's get on with it, but then let's weigh up all the options we're presented with to see how we can best afford to do the best job we can.
Okay, so just thinking about the modification to recommendation 3.
Almost there.
Oh, no, good go.
Can you get me the motion up so I can't read it. Yeah, sorry, if I can just read, I think I'm almost there. On second one, notes council was already received. Where's scope? Oh, sorry, endorses the proposed scope with the addition of encouraging mode shift, Marion, increasing patronage and delivery of real-time and other services as envisaged in the 2014 regional passenger transport plan. Is another those things that you talked about, sort of. Yes. And monitoring. Assuming if they were a part of it. They were, I think, yeah. And monitoring the existing regional passenger transport, not public transport, passenger transport services, and ensuring that there is, and monitoring, I think at the moment is all I can put on to see what comes out of that.
Yeah. So that's just staff recommendation there.
Yeah, so just run back through those.
I've just sent it to you, almost all of it.
Oh, excellent. So what we'll do, we'll get a mover. Kate, you happy to move those three?
Well, I'm happy to move those as an amendment, yeah. Yeah, inserted, I think I've got one more word to add because I think I pushed the button a bit too quickly.
We probably should just wait until we've got it up on the board, actually.
I'll see it, probably.
Okay.
I think all of those services are ones that were anticipated in the regional passenger transport plan, like real time and even internet and stuff. So the words, it goes out the word scope and then you can delete one stuff. And monitoring existing regional passenger transport services in common. And that at least will have us having an eye over it, won't fix a trigger or anything like that. I can't do that today.
Okay, thank you. So you're happy to move. Hillary's happy to second.
Well, you always move the 1, 2, and 3. That's got a whole lot. The second half of that doesn't need it. You've got encouraging mode shift twice, or I have to at the second half. Well, doesn't it stop? Sorry. Yeah, the services. Yeah, sorry, passenger transport services. Sorry, you're right. Nothing after that. Yeah. So noting these will be refined through development of the review. Does stay there. Okay.
Just explain to Liz.
So take out the piece between approach to and finishing with transport plan, leaving the last half a sentence. Yep. And then take out the mode shift at the bottom.
Yeah, yes, perfect. I'll second that.
Thanks, Kate. Thank you, Hilary. Any further discussion? Kevin?
Just on item number 8, if you could just change that final date to, it looks as though you've already done it. Just hoping we'll say yes to what you've done. Thanks, Kevin.
Thanks for your contribution, Kevin. Okay, so
Speaking to this, I
Thanks,
appreciate
Kate.
that everyone wants to get this as quickly as possible. I'm really supportive of the work that's anticipated to happen. The last thing I want to happen though is for us to do a review and it not be as good as it could be. And so as far as timeframes that are given in the report, I am more than happy, I'm just noting it, as much as we will want it. If it needs to be extended, I'd rather that was an option than coming back with a plan that wasn't quite as good as it could have been.
Thank you. Any further speakers? If not, I'll put those 3 recommendations. All those in favour, please say aye. Aye. Against? Carried. Thank you, Gary and Gavin, but don't go anywhere. Moving on to item 7.3, phase 2, bus fares for Dunedin and Queenstown. The paper seeks decisions from council on bus fares that will apply in Dunedin and Queenstown in 2021 following the end of phase 1, the transitional fare period that was put in place for both centres to enable deployment of the new electronic ticketing system. So we're essentially talking about the second half of the current financial year where these fares will apply if we move the recommendations. Beg your pardon? Oh, no, sorry. I'm just talking that it impacts the second part of the financial year, which we're about to embark on. The only other thing I was going to say, the fares for 2021, 2022, in other words, the following financial year, will be decided through the review of the RPTP, which is given effect through the council's LTP and annual plans. Is there anything you wanted to add, Gavin or Gary? If not, questions? Hilary?
Is this the appropriate place to put, I think, is my question, the suggestion that we should talk to central government about their contribution to Super Gold Card users and I think, education of people to understand that there is a sum paid to us, which may or may not bear any resemblance to the cost of us providing those services. Everyone thinks that Winston Peters gave them free buses. Actually, Winston Peters gave them partially free buses, and the ratepayers are making the rest of the contribution. And I think it could well be time that we got together with other local government people and things to say, hey, now that we've got cards and things and we can really easily tell what usage there is, and we're obliged to have every Super Gold Card user using the B cards or whatever cards you use, we can very easily, we could send up each quarter a bill to government and government could pay for them if it chose to. And if it's going to pretend it is paying for them, then it should come to the party. If it doesn't want to come to the party, we should be able to tell the people that it's only partially coming to the party. So is this a time to also have in the recommendations, I would like to add something to it, I guess, and would it be appropriate, I guess I'm sort of asking whether we put in here that we look at lobbying with other local councils, central government to fully fund what they say they're funding.
So question for Gary and Gavin, when's the most appropriate time to follow up that action?
Through Mr. Chairman, so this is the second iteration of the funding scheme for government. They kicked it off and it was around making use of the unused capacity and actually providing that at the moment, so there's no extra cost of doing that. And when they first kicked the scheme off, it was per boarding. They found probably going back to 3 years ago now, that the reality was, and they had an exercise with local government, and they were paying too much for extra buses that were already running around in service. And so that you went from that per service boarding to a whole funding model that the government as a whole signed off on being, say, 2 or 3 years ago. So that was the mechanism for how the scheme might be changed.
Yeah, so now that we're trying to get people to be using this, two things that it comes up now for, to me. One is that we're encouraging people to be using public transport even more now. I mean, we should have been for years, but even more now. And the other thing is, sort of embedded in this paper is a bit that says things about if school pupils use the buses more instead of their school buses, that might change. The school buses might stop happening because they're not being used enough or whatever it is. And the suggestion is in here that we only have them 9 till 3. Those two things are connected because we don't want older people to have free buses that cause us to have extra buses on while the school pupils want to use them. So these things are all sort of connected. Encourage people to be using them separately, so that the school pupils can be using more without us putting on more buses if it was having free people, because it does certainly encourage, as you've said somewhere in the middle here, older people to get up before that school time. So I'm sort of, I guess, asking the question is whether we should get back into the middle of this and try and get together and lobby government to say, hey, get on with this. Now we're really getting serious about this public transport stuff.
Gary.
Mr. Chair, so I'm thinking a little bit in Dunedin, there is, this is not MOE, there is a commercial provider of school bus services. And certainly before we launched the Student Offering, we had a visit from them because they were a little concerned that $1.20 per school child was going to damage their commercial viability. And so the risk that I'm flagging in the paper is potentially they continue if we leave it at $1.20. If that happens, and the risk is they will stop running their service and those school kids will be using as leading to capacity issues with the requirement for buses. The seniors, generally speaking, it's a little self-limiting. Yes, you'll have them travelling outside of Longford, which is the eligible period for funding, but if they're full of school kids and others, they won't tend to travel at that time.
Well, we don't really know quite enough about them, do we? But if we're selling to super gold card users the idea that we've had them for free, but we're putting a price back on them out of ours, which is the option you're preferring to put towards us, it's easier for us to tell our seniors that part of the advantage of this will be that school pupils will have access to the buses at those times. If we need more, we won't need more capacity the same. It won't be. Do you see what I mean? If I was one of those people over 65, then
it's not far away.
Then I might be tempted to think, oh, well, it's good if I keep out of the way of school kids because we don't want to have to put more buses on for them if I could keep out of their way. That would be a good.
Gary, I'll just get you to pull your microphone a bit closer, please. Thank you.
So before we change the fares for phase one, in terms of a fare revenue breakdown, if you like, with seniors, about 90% were travelling in the eligible period and only 10%. So we've got about $800,000 through the Super Gold refund from the agency, and seniors travelling in the peaks were contributing about 100 or 110K. And I'm not sure how that might have changed under the $2 thing. It's small work that we can do. They are a small group of users compared to the school kids, so I don't think we've seen a significant uplift in Super Gold use. We've got a graph in there that shows how it's tracked. It's kind of getting back.
It's something like $9,000 a month or something somewhere.
Yeah.
Be about 100. Well, that's quite a chunk of money.
So just going back to your original point, Hilary, do you want to come up with some wording for an additional recommendation that I imagine it would be more like a letter coming from the Otago Regional Council and raising the issue with the appropriate minister or their staff or whatever. And maybe you
It's
have
been suggested to me that we add a number 10, must be 9 already, seek a report, 3-monthly report on the super gold card holders' usage with a view to looking into some of the options we could do, including a discussion with central government.
Has that been said to Liz?
No, not yet.
Please do. Please look it through. It's an evolving system. Right, other speakers and questions? Sorry, we're in question time. Sorry, Gretchen.
That's okay, just a really quick question.
Oh, sorry.
When you're ready, yeah.
Sorry, you're okay, Gavin, Gary? You're good? Gretchen?
Yeah, just the question then is, why is the cash fare higher for Queenstown than it is for Dunedin? Does that still make sense? Well, I don't know the original, I can't remember the original reason, but my guess might be something to do with visitors to the area.
The cash fare goes back to the changes that were made in 2017, and there's a little bit of difference between Queenstown and Dunedin. So, for example, your child e-card concessions $1.50 and we're in a phase like $1.20 here. I think we talked about the review of the PT plan. That gives you an opportunity to look at whether you standardise things or whether you have separate conversations with communities around things that we're prepared to pay.
All set?
Yeah.
Brian?
I'm happy to support what's recommended here in terms of these options. I mean, you say that option D2, for example, in Dunedin should grow patronage and will cost less than most of the other options, be easy to implement. So staff are obviously behind that. And what message and publicity are we doing to really make the most of this period? Because we've been waiting for this opportunity for a long time. You know, some type of slogan, you know, use it or lose it, you know, so that, and it's, I suspect it's not necessarily just to convince the people that are on the buses, it's to convince probably people like myself that aren't currently on buses, you know, so I only want to support it if we're going in full noise and doing all the right things. So are you able to basically talk me through that in terms of the use it or lose it type concept?
Gary?
So I think in terms of the future, it's waiting on the decision today. Obviously, the report, we've only had it, we're now into the 4th month of it, so we don't have a lot of data to draw on, so it's a bit of a challenge to go, yes, that's going to be the cost. Certainly, if you extend it for another 6 months, you have much further data set to go. Yes, it has, you know, for example, that change we've seen on the Mosgiel service, which was one that was paying more than 2 zones, so they benefit significantly. Yes, that's continued and it's working there. Let's say decision today, and then we'll look at how we then promote it going forward. Certainly have to communicate to our communities around what's going to happen for the next 6 months.
Yeah, I think it's really important because I'm not sure that the community really understands the situations and the opportunity that's currently occurring.
Mr. Chairman, can I move?
Yes, I'm going to go to Alexa, then I'll come to you, and then we should have the number 10 up on the board. So I'll come back to you, Marion. Thank you. Alexa.
I've got a question. You refer to it in the report about, and I'm just wondering, but you have talked to Dunedin City Council, and you refer earlier in the report about the difference between Zone 1 and the $2 fare. And I'm wondering, do you have a sense of how Dunedin City Council are thinking about that at the moment? Was it a point of contention at one point?
Through Mr. Chairman, no, I think we've had some conversations at a staff level, and I've reflected that in the paper. There's a paper I understand going to the council in January on a number of public transport matters, that possibly being one. Just a slight aside, I noted on page 36 under the Dunedin fares, I have the youth fare wrong. I have it as $1.50. It's actually $1.20. So that's
$1.20, that's right. So we may not have heard the end of this yet, eh? Is the point.
It will be challenging if they come back and go, we want it to be X, when you've made a decision to do whatever your decision is today.
I think there was a general acceptance that, I can't remember, was it 70 or 80% of the users of the bus users were using more than one zone, which effectively meant there was a reduction of whatever it was, 28 cents or whatever, and then the balance, let's say 20%, was the increase in it. And I think it was because a lot of those were students and well, mainly students. I think that was the concern I think they raised initially. But yeah. Anyway, Marion, we can go back to you. And I just wanted to check with you. There's 10 recommendations up there. The additional one, number 10. Are you happy to move 1 to 10?
Yes, I am.
Thank you. Seconder, Michael.
I want to ask a question.
And so we'll go to Michael's question first, then we'll have debate, and then we'll a question as well. So Michael, and then Kevin questions, then we'll go into debate. Kevin, sorry, Michael.
Quite like Kevin. Mr. Chairman, this is only marginally to do with these motions, but it's a question of an operational sort of Gary. I couldn't help but notice that at least 2 of the vehicles servicing the Opaho Shield Hill route don't have any B card scanners in them. And the driver always looks a bit hangdog and apologetic and says, sorry, you can't take your B card. There's an awful lot of data being lost. He doesn't appear to be counting anything and writing it down. How can that be?
So we are in the process of trying to source some more equipment. We've had buses that have been damaged. There was a young chap talked about a while ago, and so that was our service hardware. So yes, it is. It's not a significant issue, but it does happen, and we're trying to fix it at the moment.
Okay, sorry to interrupt. Otherwise, high-level strategic discussion. Got it off my chest.
Well, there is at least 3 people live in Opaho, so that's high level.
A quarter of this council is on that bus route.
Kevin.
And 2 out of 3 of them use it.
And I'm sure it is, have the implications of this policy been recorded in our financing for our long-term plan?
It's been fed into the budgeting stuff that we're doing for next year.
Okay, so Nick's got these numbers here in his estimates. Okay, thank you. So that's the questions. It's been moved by Marion, seconded by Michael Decker. Any discussion?
Yep.
Debate? Sorry, Marion.
First of all, I strongly want to support this. I do recognise the disparity between the people who go in only one section and not 2 sections, and all those sorts of, and the students. But at the moment, I know that there are, and I know this from people talking, not through surveys, that there are more people beginning to use the bus and who are very supportive of the universal fare. So going backwards, I think, would be a retrograde step in terms of people, developing people. The aim out there is we want increased patronage. This is one way to building the trust towards getting that patronage. On the DCC thing, I think they keep talking about a number of other issues. I think later on here, you've got another paper I've read, and it's all about the roadway going one way and the hospital and all those issues. When I talk to them, I say, are you doing anything about loops? So they're talking about a $1 bus fare, not immediately, and they're also talking about looping buses, you know, that go down to the university and come up, you know, and you park out further, and there's about 4 of them going. Now there's pros and cons about those, but they are, when you say that they've got decisions to make in the next month or January or whenever it is they're making it, I know that from discussions I had 2 days ago, that is actually quite pertinent. They want it to happen. I want us to actually send a signal saying, We're not reneging. We're in a holding pattern. And implicit in that is DCC to start coming to the table and talking to us very clearly. We're there. I wouldn't possibly say that. You know, really want that. This is a partnership.
Thank you, Marion. Michael was the seconder. Michael D is the seconder. You wanted to speak?
I'm just reflecting on what Marion said. I think DCC's been well engaged with us for a few years now on public transport. No, I've got nothing else to say.
Thank you. Any further speakers? If not, I'll put the 10 recommendations all as one. All those in favour, please say aye.
Aye.
Against? Carried. Thank you very much, but don't go anywhere yet, Gary and Gavin. So moving on to shaping future Dunedin transport business case. This report presents Otago Regional Council projects within the wider Shaping Future Dunedin Transport Program to consider for inclusion within the 2021-2031 long-term plan. The preferred program that has emerged, which includes retaining the State Highway 1 system and making improvements to passenger transport, walking, cycling networks, enhancing the harbour arterial and improving parking management to encourage mode shift. Take the report as read, gentlemen. Or is there anything you wanted to add? No? Questions, councillors? Kate.
Just confirming, that's all of these figures have been built into the long-term plan that we've seen to date? That's what I believe.
That's Gary, sorry, Gavin.
They have been included, but there is a question about whether there is sufficient detail and rigour about the months in the future, further out as to whether they should be included. So, you know, the first couple of years is obviously quite a lot of rigour around that detail, but the further out ones, it's not a decision for the rest of the include those.
Thank you, Gavin. Any other queries? Hilary, and then Brian.
Is there enough flexibility in this proposal, which in the first couple of years, business cases, to look at other things we might do to increase mode shift and enhance customer experience in response to what people are telling us, rather than just looking at the proposal here?
Through you, Mr. Chairman, so business case is critical in year one. That's around the services that we may need to put in place in the future, bus services as well as infrastructure. And it's driven, the need for this, for our investments, driven around mode shift. And so the Shaping Future Dunedin program is about getting certain mode shift through the life of that. That's why these initiatives have been put there. As Mr. Palmer said, first couple of years, there's much more rigor around it. The years going forward are more indicative, and that will be things down through the business case work in year one. The only other difference there is looking at changes to particularly Mosgiel bus services in year one. We know the issue there that's highly money in year one bus services.
I guess I didn't quite get my question right, because I don't see the connection in here at all between increased mode shift and the money that's being spent. I mean, like the super stops and things, for the amount of money that's being spent, I don't see why they're connected to more people using the buses. I'd be expecting an arcade and a bloody sausage sizzle for the amount of money we're spending there. You know, these are, I don't know whether they're supposed to be bus shelters in a big way or whatever they are, but really there doesn't seem any particular connection between what people have been asking us for mode shift and what we're delivering. So I'm just saying, is looking at the business case flexible enough to allow some of those to be teased out, rather than just how big should the sausage sizzle and arcade centres be?
So the business case will be, drive for that will be around mode shift, and that's particularly why that's extra bus services in there. the super stops, yes, the jury's out on the super stops, there are RPTP action, but the other thing that the business case will do is actually tease out the need of that. Effectively an exchange or an interchange for the network. I'm giving a bit of idea of what they look like. Yeah, but similarly, with talks about bus hub further out, I think that work needs to be done, and it may be that comes out and says, yes, you need an investment at this level, or no, you don't.
Can we go?
Just need to, Mr. Chair, that one of the changes we did make in the early part of the program is to create greater separation. This is the table in paragraph 22, greater separation between completing the business case, which is the case for investment, and then getting on and implementing, so that you only implement once you've completed the business case, you confirm that there's a case for commencing construction. Previously, they were happening simultaneously. It didn't make sense. This is why we pushed the super stop stuff out further in the future.
Yes, I absolutely approve of the business case looking into it. I'm asking whether doing a business case is flexible enough to allow other, if for instance, the only thing that people told us they wanted was real-time bus service information, would this business case come up with that and say, why don't we put our money into doing that? Is it flexible enough to respond to what people actually have asked for?
Through Mr. Chairman, so I don't believe the business case will look at that. You will get much more bang for your buck out of extra bus services.
So that's a no, you know better than the people. You think your knowledge, sorry, that wasn't meant to be rude. Can we make it flexible enough so as that we can get input in and see whether that increases the...
So I've done some work in the previous role where the key things to growing patronage of successful bus services are around flexibility, coverage, and reliability, things like fares and turn time and the others. What makes those bus services work? So I'm not saying we've got a point, there's certainly a need to move with the times and start looking at real time and other technologies that come through. But it won't give you the same bang for your buck as some of these other things.
Okay. Okay. We've got Brian, then Gary, then Kate.
Yeah, Hilary sort of asked some of the questions I wanted to ask, and I'm just trying to build upon our LTP discussions that we had this morning, and I think the general feel that public transport and the improvement of public transport, while important, wasn't our top priority. In fact, it wasn't our second, or even possibly a third if you include regulatory and this type of thing. And I'm just looking at the numbers there. Are we at a point with the DCC, always making noises where we do actually basically give it to them and get some type of credit on our balance sheet, and so that we can actually focus on the stuff we want to focus on, or actually ask for a contribution. I sat here, QLDC rock up, we have to pay half because we're working with them in terms of their urban challenges. Well, the DCC rocks up and tells us what to do in transport. Where's their money? Are we at a point, or can we delay some of this work because it's not essential in the next financial year to assist our LTP? I mean, there's a question mark has already been raised over the super stops. What are your thoughts?
Kevin.
Mr. Chair, that first question is not a staff question. It's a question I can answer, or Mr. Maloney. As the second one, yes, it's a decision for you today. You had that decision to not endorse proceeding to a business case in year one of the LTP.
Yeah.
For consultation, of course, the LTP is consultation. So the decision that you're endorsing really to have the most impact, the two things in the table in paragraph 22, which are proceeding to the business case and some increased bus services which are identified there, but you can actually make a decision to endorse it.
So that's 400 grand from the ORC, and is that a general rate?
No, we target.
Yeah. Targeted, yeah.
What is it?
Be targeted, right?
Okay, and the actual increased bus services that we're going to get in the next financial year is what?
So what's included on that table is 15-minute peak services from Osgill and 30-minute peak new express service from Osgill, starting at halfway through the financial year to give us time to do the work with the contractor to get that in place.
And peak frequencies in Port Townsend.
Later through the time.
Okay. Gary.
Thank you. Just executive summary, item 2, we talk about the hospital. Number 4, we say improve parking management to encourage motion. Now, is that statement relative to all of Dunedin or relative to the hospital?
It's wide, so the hospital has the catalyst to start some work, and then it grew to being around making the being more city. So the mode shift is encompassing the city.
Right. And when we say encourage mode shift, are we say improving parking management, encourage mode shift, are we saying incentives to encourage bus use as opposed to parking in the city?
So it's a range of measures from better walking and cycling to doing stuff around parking, supply and cost, as well as extra bus services. There's the mode shift plan that underlies us that it's the basis of whatever option I do with one-way, two-way thing, but it doesn't change a respective option.
Right. I guess my concern around that statement is that's great for people within Dunedin and of course encouraging public use, but for the hospital and people outside of Dunedin, they will drive to the hospital, and one of the major messages I hear regularly is around parking at the hospital.
So that's certainly been raised with respect to contact at the project management of the Shaking Finch leading program that's had with the hospital. It's an issue for them to work with. It's not an issue that we get much influence over.
Kate.
I just want to pick up the questions Hilary was saying and include. I'm surprised that you and I have a very different idea on reliability. And for me, knowing that a service is reliable is two-way. Is one, us tracking the buses and knowing that they are reliable. And in that, you tracking the buses, you have a potential for a real-time service. Reliability for us as the operator of the, or not operator, in charge of the service, but also reliability for the patron. Now, I've heard examples that Alex has given of buses just not turning up. It will only happen once or twice, and I will not even consider using that service. Real time is about, for me, reliability. And I don't mind if the bus is running 5 minutes or 10 minutes late, as long as I know that and don't have to wait out in the rain for it, or at a super stop, or that I've missed the bus. So coming from that point, can I just ask if would we be able to include reliability, including real-time service, in the business case by slightly altering the recommendation to, after, as outlined in this report, adding something to the extent of and delivery of a real-time service within the draft, blah, blah, blah. Would that enable that to be added as a reliability issue in the business case?
Sorry if I understand you correctly, you're wanting it picked up with the business case work.
Well, just to work out what is the best thing that we can do. So you said the three things that you wanted as one's reliability. And if reliability is something we can disagree that real service, I don't mind, we don't agree on that. But if we can add it in there, will it be picked up? My understanding is that NZTA were to deliver the real-time service. They haven't, is that correct? The choices app?
Right.
Yeah.
That is right. But and I think we were having some discussion about it the other day. I'm just looking because there is,
It is something that they were going to fund. And in which case we need to have a business case for them to fund it. So let's put it in here as a business case because it was in the regional PES. And whether we agree or not on whether it be reliability, it doesn't really matter. But I think if we want to get them to fund it or contribute to that funding because they haven't done it, then we need to put it in here.
Sounds like a good idea.
So I'll send, could you get those words, Liz, if I get to move it?
Could you flick them through? Any response from,
And delivery of a real-time service.
Gavin, any response with this suggestion from Kate?
Yes, Mr. Chair, just wondering about the fit, given the purpose of this particular business case and the two problem statements that have been developed for, because the real time becomes one of the list of methods that one would respond to. We're sort of thinking it through, and of course that just deals with the needing, but another area that, you know, there's other places too. So just wondering about whether it, how it fits.
So if it was going to be looked at or taken to another level, where would it essentially become where's the best way to either have that discussion? Let's say it's not shaping future Dunedin transport. Where would the appropriate place to have that discussion?
Well, I'm just wondering, because it's a topic of interest to council, is whether we just bring paper back, which is, where is it at? And what are the options? And we might fit in a suite of things that happen. Okay. That's sort of going through my mind, whether it would be helpful to give a proper update where it's at and how it might be delivered, where it's at. So
okay.
Wondering.
Okay. Thank you, Gavin. I'll go back to Kate and then I'll go to Alexa.
So I am still going to move that if you give me the indulgence to, with that included, because I'm sorry, if you look at paragraph 5, the aspects of the mode shift program for council included improved public transport services and frequencies, upgraded public transport infrastructure and consideration of fair pricing. This is very, very basic. It's one of the very basic things that people expect on a bus service now. It is infrastructure that goes with it. And I can't pull it apart from all of that. And it will make a difference to get that mode shift. It is that reliability that you just spoke about that gets a mode shift. And so it is so entwined. And I just want to see it progress. If we don't do it now, then it may not get NZTA funding.
I just want to confirm with Gavin and Gary about the inclusion of the real-time service in conjunction with this recommendation in this report. Just understanding, is this going to create any impediment going forward when we're all we're really trying to do is to enhance the service, to increase patronage, etc. and customer satisfaction, I suppose.
Can I ask a question after that related?
Marion, and I'll come back to Gavin and Gary.
Okay, just a related question. I am open and I'm trying to work how you include this through. But the motion says approves the inclusion of the ORC projects. Then we go over and have a look at the projects and you've laid them out. 2 business cases, infrastructure, increased bus services, personnel. And now we're adding something else in, and that cost of those. Yeah. Now we're adding, hang on, I'm just finished. We're adding something specific in there that's uncosted into here. And I kind of feel a little bit uncomfortable.
Fair enough.
I'm not uncomfortable about the idea, but compared to the other things that are all costed, this becomes a bit strange.
Just within the business case, it probably hasn't been with this.
I'm happy with the
Including a business case in brackets.
I'm very happy with that amendment. But I may note that NZTA we're going to fund 100% that anyway, so it shouldn't affect our long-term plan.
Can I have an answer from these two whether this is going to...
I'll come to Alexa in a moment, but I just want to check. I just assume Gary and Gavin are just pondering their thoughts with regards to incorporating the real-time service in this motion or not.
Does it have financial implications?
Again, you're not committing to, you're committing to a business case, so you're committing to a process through which those things are considered and then brought back, and So I think I'm okay with it being recognised as one of the methods that might be part of that. I think that's all right.
Excellent.
Okay.
Yeah, pick up the interest in matter, so.
Okay.
certainly incorporate it.
Okay. Alexa.
Does it need to stay clearly within the business?
It seems to me that that might be, I mean, Shaping Future Dunedin Transport has identified those problems, hasn't identified that within it, which seems to me a bit strange to put here. I would have thought that we would take something like that and put it into more into our transport plan at a higher level than this is sitting. But if Gary and Gavin think it's okay to go in here, but it seems like we're kind of playing around with what's already been decided as the problems to be solved.
Okay.
And it could be part of the problems being solved without being in this.
So through you, Mr. Chairman, the business case that we're talking about will start fresh and have all this evidence and stuff from Shaping Future Dunedin, but it will start with a best logic mapping exercise going, what are the problems here that we're trying to fix? That was on the mode shift and with respect to real time. That will be one of the, I'll probably see one of the longest through councils to be shortlist options that will get examined through that business case.
Okay. So you're both comfortable with what's proposed in recommendation 2?
Well, that's going to be changed.
Oh, okay.
It's changing it to make sure it's in the business case. It's part of the business case, isn't it?
Okay.
Not committing to delivering it. It's
Yep.
considering it in
Looking.
a suite of things that you achieve.
Okay. So business case fits in.
It's got proofs for inclusion in energy.
Who's the business case?
But I've got business case development at the start.
So it leaves the recommendation 2 as it was in the audit paper and separates it out.
Probably should not have anything before the inclusion.
It's not delivery.
Including.
Andrew.
Yes. Yes. So yes. So yeah, because the question, this is a consideration. Thank you, Sarah. Yep. Consideration of. Including.
Does that make sense to you?
Consideration
Consideration.
Perfect.
Perhaps, yeah.
Yep.
Number 2, right?
No, I. Just leave 2 there at the moment because I think.
The second bracket should go after real-time service.
I think 2 needs to stay there.
Well, 2 is already included in number 3.
Who's including business case? I see projects for shaping around. So it's fully covered. Real-time. Okay, right.
So,
Okay,
as
yep,
outlined
yep.
in this report and including consideration.
Gavin?
Service close agreements.
I think it's through everything from RRC projects up to including gets taken out because what it's really saying is press for inclusion, business case development, consideration of a real time. I think that's the essence of it, isn't it?
Okay.
Freeze focused on a real time system.
Yeah.
Okay.
In the business case.
So from ORC projects through to.
Outlined in this report.
Yep.
RRC projects because they're part of 2.
In the business case.
It's already covered.
Development. Consideration of, so drop out that next line.
That whole line.
That whole second line under 3. I have rewritten 2.
So, yep, that's it, Liz.
Perfect, isn't it?
So that goes.
Yeah.
So, okay.
another one about the general business case.
Yeah, that's why I have changed it and to be city too. And then you
We now don't cover the business case.
Should stop the service. My motion cut was.
We'll just have one speaking to Liz at a time because.
But just stop after real-time service and what off the last few words. Personal inclusion in this business case development of the project. Including consideration of real-time service, full stop.
Okay, a mover and a seconder. Yep. We have a mover.
You have
a seconder. Oh, awesome, done. Sorry, excellent.
Gavin.
Gavin.
Just related to number two. Number two is very directive. He's put it in the draft plan, and I'm just wondering, in light of discussions around funding, whether it would have a qualifier around the subject to.
I think we just taken out, wasn't it? It disappeared, but it's gone back in again. It's a question. Do you want to show me the new one? Sorry. Show me the new one. About that, Gavin.
We haven't got that.
Consideration. Well, that's fine, but what we're really seeking today is endorsement of the direction of travel with all of this. So we need, and two aspects of the report's very directive. It says improve it, put a new plan. On reflection, what we really wanted to seek is noting, endorsing the program, or at least noting the program, and then some steer to incorporate it into draft subject to funding. In other words, once you start to look at this in the total, there'll be some, you might reflect and say, we want to make some adjustments to try and get what is included.
How about a two with endorsing the program? Full stop. Then. Sees, endorses and.
Why don't we just put two back in completely as one?
Because you're not saying what year it's going along to, and you just say it's going in.
The arcade, the sausage doesn't grow so
Right, the mover and seconder, are they happy with those three motions?
Yep, sure are.
Excellent. Is there any?
Speakers, yes.
There are speakers. Marion.
I've been sitting here quietly because I've been really upset about people not liking the idea of super bus stops. Because the one thing that I get hit up on by users of buses in Dunedin, and it's because I go into community house and walk along Dunstone. Sometimes I must have ORC printed on my head. The people stop and say, where the harbour fish shop was, you know the temporary, you know where harbour fish is, and they temporarily went into a temporary shop just there. Well, quite a number of South Dunedin folk would love us to take that over as an ORC office, as a coffee shop.
You mean Port Chalmers people?
No.
Hang on, just one person speaking at once.
About this. So it will leave quite a group of people. And just come and put this up. Now, I have sort of mentioned that to various people. That I don't want that discussion there, but what it says is that super bus stops, places when you have been walking through town, you're carrying all your bags, this has happened to me, you need to find a comfortable bloody seat to sit in, and as soon as you sit down, you want to go to the loo. Sorry.
You should go to the loo then sit there.
Well, whatever. But so to have a place like a super bus stop does enhance actually people using things, particularly old people. Sounds almost the oldest in this room. Using the buses, they become a place of comfort. So I haven't put that. I'll try and collapse it. I was approached about this issue. It's important to people, quite important to people, that occasionally, not every bus stop is a bus stop that is sheltered, that has places for people to sit down, you know, maybe a cup of coffee. Because there's another thing to say, people. It's about mental health. People are very lonely, and they see some of these places as places where they're waiting for a bus and they see a neighbour and it's someone they can talk to. And if we are talking about well-being, then that's when these things become, they're more than, we're encouraging people to get on buses, but it's a pleasant happening, not a horrible happening.
Thanks, Marion. Any other speakers? If not,
Just before you put the motion, Mr.
Michael.
Chairman, I think at the meeting you and I were at last week of shaping future Dunedin transport, there was a proposition to have both councils come together for a briefing on where the project is at. Am I right in remembering that?
Yeah, correct, yes.
So keep it on your mind, sometime probably in January, February, there'll be the whole project team talking to us and to DCC about the project, where it's going, where it's got to.
Thanks, Michael. No
Anyway,
further.
sorry to interrupt.
No, perfect.
Please
Thank you.
don't prolong the discussion any longer.
We lost all the members of the public.
All those in favour, please say aye.
They're late for a bus.
Against? Carried. Now, we're going to have an adjournment. I move. Seconded by councillor Hope. We'll reconvene in 10 minutes. Okay? So don't go too far away.
Only got 2 minutes.
Right, you want to cover? Do you want to do your
No.
own? you want me to be a teacher?
We all good to go?
Yes, yes, Mr. Moon.
Excellent. Righto, we're on item 7.5. Welcome back, everybody. So this is the councillor appointment to the Otago Catchment Community Governance Group. Pretty straightforward. Note that Brian has left the room. Yeah, so this really, obviously a request from the recently formed Otago Catchment Community Governance Group. Sarah and I received an email from Katie Barnes, who is the chair of that group, a week or 10 days ago, and in that email requested a councillor rep on the group, and also, which Sarah will deal with as a staff member, as an advisory person on the group as well. Wouldn't have voting rights, but will be there in an advisory capacity. So I'm happy to move recommendation 1 and 2, but there may be some questions first.
No questions.
I've moved, seconded by Alexa. Thank you. Discussion, Carmen?
Thank you, Chair Noon. I'd like to move that we have Councillor Brian Scott, that is part of this upstaging committee. I'd just like to let you know that a couple of weeks ago I went to this Otago Community Catchments meeting at Invermain, and I offered that we would continue in kind support, and we're here in that capacity, and wherever we can come to a catchment meeting or a day of endorsement, that we will be there. There was 2 parts to the meeting which I need to speak to you about so you understand. There was the funding. There was also a funding from MPI as well, and that funding perhaps from MPI may also help in the employment of the person they need to actually get all of this up and going for that regional coordinator's position. So what we did on that day is we looked at perhaps what that person's role could be. It was very much thought of all the people there, about 26 people in total, that we should split it in 2. There should be an admin person that would do also the funding, and then a person perhaps to go out into the catchment groups, because they feel that there'll be too much, if you like, work for one person, so it was easy to split it, and that was received really favourable. I think Councillor Brian Scott would be great on this committee, up on the high tier, and I think it'll be great because he'll be able to be the link for one, for us, and number 2, I think he'll be able to be in the catchments and see the good work. We also had new people that came to that meeting. We had the gentleman that came from, what's his name, Reese Mill, who came, and he was be able to gently put his case that saying, well, it's not just about urban, it's about your coastal urbans as well, which seem to be missing outside the sphere, of urban Dunedin. And I think that was a really important thing, because in the FMUs that we've been at, I was at Ranfurly, and a lot of country folk from Ranfurly said, but we would love the urban Ranfurly people to join us. And how do we get that to happen? So I would say, if you like, gently weave that in. And I said, look, I think the experiences that Reese will have will be really beneficial, just like I think Councillor Brian Scott will be. So I would just like to endorse that, please, Chair. Thank you.
Thanks, Carmen. No further speakers. Gary and Hilary, the motion's been moved and seconded. This is for the council appointment to the Otago Catchment Community Group. Okay. I'll put both motions. All those in favour, please say aye.
Aye.
Against, carried. So item 8, the recommendations adopted at committee meetings. Would someone like to move? Kevin?
Can you avoid the, would be quite, you'd probably sort of like to know.
Right.
It was subject to a speech, wasn't it? Yeah. Or no speech.
Can we move this and the strategy planning and finance?
Yep. You happy to move both, Hilary? Seconded by Gretchen. Any discussion? If not, I'll put both those motions. All those in favour, please say aye.
Aye.
Against, carried. I just want to move. Yes, I just want to move. This is essentially acknowledging staff's contribution in a difficult year. That council sincerely appreciate all the hard work and dedication by staff during a very difficult year. The hurdles and challenges have been extreme. Thank you all for being so committed to Team ORC. I'll move that from the chair, seconded by Michael. Any discussion? Pretty self-explanatory. Carmen.
Chair, I think we would all just endorse that from all councillors. We have seen everybody work really hard and COVID's had its challenges. We've seen that. It's amazing how we've been able to adapt, and we thank Sarah for guiding the staff. Thank you. And may you also too, Mrs. Gardner, have a Merry Christmas.
Thank you.
Yeah, there's been a lot going on and a lot that we haven't seen directly, and I just think emergency management and think the commitment from the staff over Richard and the rest of the emergency management team who were at the coalface in those earlier stages of lockdown, etc. I mean, this is the sort of role was probably never anticipated, dealing with a pandemic, for example, and people who were unable to get out of the country, unable to be certain about their future and all sorts of things. So there was a real social agency to a certain degree that had to kick in, which, a whole new space. Any further speakers? If not, I'll put that motion. All those in favour, please say aye.
Aye.
Against, carried. Moving on to item 9, that the public be excluded. Yep, I just want to read that under Lagoima section 48(1)A from the discussions of the following items is listed on the audit paper, the 3 items there. I thought we did that, moved and seconded.
Sorry, I should have put out.
Sorry.
Apologies.
Yep.
I didn't hear that, but.
Oh.
Sorry,
I think Gretchen seconded and I think Hillary
Sorry.
moved, I think, yeah. Yep. And we just need to note that Nathan, the IT man, needs to stay here for the non-public session. So this